Hello, hello. I can see people started to gather, so that's really amazing. Um, Hello to everybody. You can write in the chat box where you guys are listening to us from. We're going to wait a couple more seconds until maybe more people come over, and we're going to start. Okay, amazing. Hello, everybody. My name is Magda, and I'm the head of growth here at Email Industries, and I will be moderating today's webinar about IP warming. I am joined by two amazing guests. Before I introduce them, I just want to tell you all that the webinar is going to be about 40 or 50 minutes so that we keep it under 1 hour. It is recorded, as you might see, so you will be able to access it later on. So welcome, everybody. And I'm going to start with the first guest, Daniel Schneider, who is an entrepreneur hailing from Israel. He's currently based in Tel Aviv, and he's the co-founder of Warmy, alongside his brother, Michael. He has degrees in electrical engineering, biomedical engineering, and an MBA. You have a lot. And beyond work, you are an adrenaline junkie. That's what I read here. And you have scaled both Mount Kilimanjaro and Everest. That is super impressive, I gotta say. So with a vision to expand globally and a commitment to excellence, Daniel is not only building a business, but he's also making a significant impact in the sales and lead generation domain. Welcome, Daniel. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. What an introduction, and thank you so much for this.
Sure.
Yeah, I
Go
spent
ahead.
some time in the university, but it was cool, and now I'm here.
Nice. I feel like at some point, people just are done with universities. I studied for quite a while, because I wanted to. So I'm really impressed by your CV, let's say. So now we have Neil Robinson, who is working at Email Industries as the deliverability lead. He's been in the IT industry for over 20 years with a primary focus on supporting email platforms, from small businesses all the way to very large organizations. And within the last 5 years, his focus kind of shifted from managing the inbound email servers to making sure the client's marketing emails get delivered to the inbox. As a deliverability lead at Email Industries, he's working with other top email geeks to help clients make sure they're conquering all the roadblocks they have with email marketing, and whether it's helping set up new systems or optimizing current processes or resolving major deliverability issues. His expertise is basically a guarantee of success. And when he's not doing emails, he's probably outdoors with his family. Can you tell a bit more about yourself, Neil?
I'm not climbing mountains like Daniel is, but yeah, I love to spend time outside, and I've been like we said in IT since right out of high school. So this has been, I didn't do university route like Daniel. I didn't get the pleasure of university, but I did have been in technology since then. I've loved it ever since. So
amazing. And before we move on to my questions, I have to ask you guys one thing. Daniel, can you tell me a couple of words about Warmy, what the company does, and how it helps their clients?
Yeah, so everything started a few years ago when we started to send a lot of emails for other business we had, me and my co-founder, which is my brother, as you mentioned, and we found out that there is a problem when you send a lot of emails of deliverability. There is a spam folders, stuff like that, and then we looked for a solution back then. I think it was 5-6 years ago, and couldn't find any solution, and we started we figured out that we spent a lot of time in the university, and we decided to try to solve this problem. And this is how everything started. And this is the way we started to think about this problem, to think about the engineering. We solved this problem to ourselves, and then we started to show it to the world. And what we do at Warmy, actually, we solve the problem of emails going to spam, increase the email deliverability, which is just growing. This market is growing year over year. And the first thing that someone is doing when he is joining a company is opening a new email account. And how important it is, with the number of emails we send daily just growing. And we decided we fall in love with this problem of email deliverability, and we are solving this problem with the technology we are developing, and all around it. And this is what we do in Warmy, where almost, I think, 35 people working only on deliverability and experimenting things, researching, and trying to give it a proper technological solution.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think we fell in love with the same thing, email deliverability. So Neil, could you tell us a little bit more about Email Industries?
Yeah, Email Industries it's Scott's company. He, from my understanding with Scott, he started out doing the list hygiene, the black box tool, that has since evolved into the Alfred product, which is a fantastic list verification platform. But I know over the last couple of years, I know Scott's been doing a lot of consulting, those types of things. But I would say a year and a half, 2 years ago, he really pushed the services. We built a really great team of some experts that are just knocking things out of the park. We're solving problems for a lot of large companies that, like, why is our stuff landing spam? And we take the time to figure it out and give them the solutions, and then they end up in the better direction. That's really the extent of Email Industries. But yeah, anything email related, Email Industries is equipped to handle it. Whether it's outreach, whether it's your B2C, consumer e-com emails going out, whether it's just business correspondence, we have the tools and the expertise to basically make sure that anything's fixed and you get back in the inbox and you get those conversions.
That's a very good explanation from both of you guys. Thank you so much. I'm hoping our attendees will understand a bit more where we come from. So without further ado, we didn't spend that much time on introductions, though. I wanted to ask, maybe Neil, you promised that you would explain this to me. What is IP warming in general?
Yeah, so IP warming is the task you have to do to get your IP addresses properly prepared to send emails. This is, when you're a small business, as Daniel mentioned, when you get your first email address, there's always an organic growth when someone first starts, or when businesses first start. You have to start small, and the email servers look to expect that. So when you have an existing business and you go to, say, get a new provider or get new IP addresses for whatever reason, your volume's grown, you don't want to start at 100 miles an hour. It's like basically a car. You slowly accelerate the car. You make sure that everything is lined up like it's supposed to. If you hit the gas too fast, you're going to run off the track, or you're going to run off the road. And so IP warming is being strategic and slowly sending out volumes. And there's a lot of strategies to it, but it's a slow growth on the volume, because that's what email providers, inbox providers look for. They don't want to see you go from 0 to 100 in a day. They want to see you go from 0 to 100 over the course of a week or two. And of course, over here it's miles per hour. You guys have the kilometers per hour. I don't know what 100 miles per hour is to you guys, but for us, that's pretty fast. And so that's what warming is. You just have to be very cautious, because otherwise it looks suspicious. And we'll talk about some of the struggles you have if you don't do it correctly.
That all makes sense. Is there anything you can add, Daniel, or?
It was an amazing explanation. Nothing to add. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to start with you, Daniel. Can you tell me some of the best practices when it comes to IP warm-up?
Yes, so I would start with what Neil just said, is to start slowly and gradually. And all the filters, or all the blacklist, doesn't like that when you have some spikes. When you start very fast, immediately you have some spikes, and no one likes it. So start slowly and make the growth smooth. And this is one of the best practices I can suggest now. The second one is to receive emails, to show that you are receiving emails. Back then, before the tools that were developed, what people actually did, they are subscribed to newsletters, a lot of newsletters. We went to different website and just subscribe, put our email, and start receiving a lot of newsletters. It helps a lot for the IP warming, and this is the second tip I can share. So everything should be slow. Receiving emails are very important, and the first few weeks, months, I would not send emails at all, or a very low amount of emails, and also to engaged prospect, that you think that they will engage with your emails. Otherwise, quickly we can from warming we can go back to to cold temperature, I would say, or or to destroy the reputation. And this can be one way. And so this is what I can suggest.
That sounds very good. Neil, can you add any other best practices that maybe you live by?
I think the one thing, and I like that trick about the newsletters from old school, Daniel, that's true, because you don't think about the inbound as well as the outbound. But the one thing I would say is what I've seen where they fall into pitfalls is when they send out their emails, they're just kind of sending it out without really thinking about the quality of those leads, the engagements they're going to get. And so just because you start slow doesn't mean you're going to be on a positive thing. So when you look at the first one you send to, whether you're using a tool or you're using your list that you have, you want to send it to the quality leads that will actually engage and get you back. Because that's what warming is about, is a good foundation you build onto it. And so if you're just sending to a bunch of leads you have, or you're not using a tool to warm, or you're not having your team send emails out to people and go back and forth with engagement, it's really not going to benefit you. So you have to make sure the best practice is high quality leads, high quality contacts first at those lower volumes as you build it up. Once again, if a business starts, they start with small contacts, but those should be good one-on-one communications. That's what filters expect. And then it grows into marketing and sales. So you follow that same thing. So my tip to add to Daniel's is early on, it's good quality, engageable contacts back and forth to start with.
That sounds very good. So basically, you don't use steroids when it comes to email. Don't do this, or
yeah, don't push.
It can break your campaign. Yeah.
Yep. One thing I would mention, when I think right now everyone that is listening to this webinar is important. How to kill a domain. If you want to kill a domain or a IP reputation, when I mentioned that you can join as a recipient of newsletters, some of the companies, and I suggest to all of the people that are listening to do double opt-in. Why double opt-in? Because people can subscribe to their newsletter, but easily we can put a spam trap as a subscriber. A spam trap is an email address that can detect that, like a trap, and it can kill your reputation immediately. So if you don't have on your business, on your website, a double opt-in, so I can go to your website, put a spam trap, you will by mistake send me an email, you think it's real, so you want to send your newsletter, but you will send to a spam trap, and it can totally kill your reputation. So this is something I don't want to forget, and it's a very good things to implement on your website. Double opt-in. So whenever someone put their email to get emails, he needs to verify, and the spam traps don't verify themselves. So yeah, so it's important to have this, protection on inside your newsletter or something like that. Yeah. So I said it doesn't connect to your question, but I wanted to mention it. So I will not forget later.
That's very good. That's really yeah. I did not think about this one.
Super important.
I think
yeah.
I think the double opt-in kind of makes you a lot more trustworthy when somebody receives the double opt-in email first. It's like, okay, they mean business.
Yeah, on our website, what we did, we don't have double opt-in, but we check, everyone that is subscribing to our newsletter. It's not automatically added to our list. We go carefully checking. So yeah, we're very keen about it.
And that goes back to the quality of the leads. I've had that before where we've set up new websites in the past. You don't do a recapture, you don't do double opt-in. I think I actually had double opt-in on one client, and we actually still got hit with bots. And luckily they didn't get other emails, even though we had double opt-in. But it does make a huge difference, to make sure you're validating your contacts. Once again, quality leads go in, quality leads go out on the send. It's going to help you in the long run. And that double opt-in is a huge thing that a lot of marketers don't want to do. But for long-term email health, you almost have to.
Yeah, but yeah, you can implement it on marketing emails, but for cold emails, obviously nobody will double opt-in, but it's another story. But just a small tip how you can harm someone's domain and website or IP. So please, first, don't do that, and second, how to avoid it.
Yeah. I'd like to expand on this a little bit because we're talking best practices. Daniel, what's the Warmy's approach when it comes to IP warming?
Yeah, so what we do actually, this is everything around deliverability is a kind of a black box. It's a lot of information out there, but it's not official from all the spam trap generators or big company that actually developing it, because their idea is to make sure that to protect their customers. But what we do actually, we always experimenting. We're doing like a black box. We're trying to do something. We see numbers again and again and again. From what we see, always we analyze, and then we are trying to improve with new technology, with new features we do to improve. So this is I think this is the only approach in this case. So to test, see the numbers, and then to iterate and see again and to iterate, and this is always be like that. It's like it's kind of I would say similar to cybersecurity. There is a protector, and there is that one someone wants to get to the inbox. We're trying to help to those who wants to really get to the inbox with the right emails. And IP warming is something that you want to help some marketer to send a lot of emails. Hopefully they are relevant. Hopefully they are legit. But still, if you don't have, if you are not warmed enough, so you will not get to the inbox. And so this is what we're trying to always do, and also to trying to think how we can reduce the time of the warm up to get to the inbox. Is this something we know this is a problem, because someone wants, we want something very fast as a customers. We want to do something fast and to start sending a lot of emails, get to the inbox, get our engagements, leads. But we're trying to solve this as well. But this is only by numbers, experiment numbers, and for us is a black box, as I mentioned.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think sometimes clients kind of don't understand that they need to come to you a bit earlier and not leave everything until the last moment. I need this campaign out, please do it. So I think the timing is very important here. Thank you. Neil, what are the email industries? How does email industries approach email IP warming?
It's very similar to Daniel in the fact, like, one, client expectations are always out of whack. We have a lot of customers that come in and say, "Can I send 10,000 emails tomorrow?" Like, no. So first thing we do is set clients' expectations, and we try to help them understand, like, look, if you want a long-term, we can blast something out for you, but then you're going to have to start over again next month or the month after. And we get that a lot. So, a couple of things that we do with the approach is, one, we make sure that we have a good schedule, make sure that we're aware of the volume sending out, we look at what kind of strategies do you have? Do you need to add multiple mailboxes for different, users? Is one mailbox enough? We look at the structure. How many IPs do they have? What volume are you trying to hit? Do we need to send 2 or 3 dedicated IPs so that way in a month or two we can actually get to that volume you want? It's a lot of planning when it comes to IP warming because there's so many variables tied to it. One of the biggest things that I think that gets overlooked a lot is the providers you're sending to. If you have 100,000 contacts, one of the things to look at is how does your audience break down? The different providers, Microsoft, Google, Yahoo, those are kind of your big 3, but then you also have iCloud, and you even have like Google Business versus Freemail, Microsoft Business versus Microsoft Freemail. Each one of those has their own filters because they have their own information. And so what ends up happening is if you have 100,000 and you don't understand who you're sending to as far as an audience is concerned, then the problem you have is you might think you're doing great because you're getting decent deliverability at, say, Yahoo, but your Gmail might be going to spam because you didn't properly warm up each provider. So you have to get that granular on the warming side to make sure that every provider matters. The idea of the global block list outside of spam house is kind of the one now, but the idea of global provider to provider effect is really not there anymore. Each provider has all their information, so they know how you're being handled, and so you have to treat each one on its own. And so you have to plan that specifically. So not only is it 100,000 contacts you want to send and what's that time frame and how do you warm up to that volume, but it's how many of those are Google, how many of those are Microsoft, how many of those are Yahoo, and you want to plan those as well. So when you do your warming, you have to take that into account too, as those pieces of it. So that's one of the big things that I think get overlooked a lot. Not only is it just the volume, it's, well, what's your volume at each provider? If you start with 100, well, how does that break down for Google, Microsoft, or Yahoo? Because that does matter. That's what makes a big difference. So that's the biggest thing that we look at when we start with clients with new systems or different types of things, where we have to look at those pieces. And sometimes breaking it down by provider, the one benefit of it is you can actually start sending more, because now you're breaking down to 40, 40, 20. Now you have 100 versus thinking, oh, I only have to start with 50, because you don't realize it. So you can actually get better volume because you're spreading it across and you're very aware of where you're sending it to. So that's just one of those things. That's the biggest change I've seen in the last little bit. And that's how we handle a lot of the warming we do now.
That was a very comprehensive answer. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now that we've talked about the best practices and the approach, I wanted to touch something that Daniel actually started talking about, spam traps. What are the most common mistakes that you are seeing that should be avoided at all costs? Let's go with you, Daniel.
Yeah, so as we already mentioned, do not send, you just, have a new dedicated IP, or you started your business, or I don't know, we want to send a lot of emails, and you send a lot of emails without any first segmentation. So segmentation is very important, so you can segment those that you're engaging more, or if you don't know if you're going to send cold emails, so at least start very, very slow, and then you can grow gradually. So this is the first mistake. Second is people are sending emails without verifying them, and they're not sure if this email exists, or first, or this is a spam trap. I have to mention that even when you're using some tools to verify your emails, it doesn't mean that it will find spam traps or stuff like that, because the companies, I will not mention the name of these companies, but they're very famous in this field. Their mission is every morning to think about creative ways to generate these spam traps. For example, what they do, from what I heard, and I met them on some conferences, what they do, for example, they can buy a company that already, this company is inactive. They're buying this domain, not the company, but the domain, the website, and everything, the LinkedIn profiles or whatever needed. And you as a sender think this is a real person, and you send an email to this email address, you send a message, but you hit a spam trap. And the verifiers out there, they can be very good, but they cannot detect it immediately, because unfortunately it looks real, it feels real. But again, and if you hit this spam trap, so you are done, you're listed, and you can send another email you will not know, and the third and first, and it give you a few times to fix yourself, but you will continue to send these newsletters or cold emails, and I don't know, they penalize you after 3 times, I think, or after 5 times forever. They can kill your reputation forever. So make sure you know to whom you are sending, even though the technology cannot detect all the traps and everything, but it's important. So this is one of the mistakes. And even though you do everything correctly at the beginning, you are warming up, you are doing according to the rules, but it's enough to hit some traps to kill all the process. If you are doing a cold email, if you are sending cold emails, obviously someday you can hit this spam trap. But if you are doing marketing emails, newsletters, where people subscribe to you, make sure you do double opt-in and you send to engaged prospect. So these are the mistakes, I would say, the most important to avoid. And just to emphasize, the tools that are sending are verifying, they're good, but they're not good at 100% to detect. So I would say, make sure you know to whom you are sending. If you don't care about your IP reputation, domain reputation, and you have a lot of them, so you can not waste your time and just send until you will see the reputation is dead. But until then, verify the email account, the email addresses that you send to. Make it slow progress, smooth, without any spikes, and it should work well.
I understand. So basically, remember to verify often. And don't purchase
verify,
lists.
but yeah, don't purchase. But again, verifying is not 100%, unfortunately. And these companies are small; they're not huge companies, but they're very smart, and they're doing creative things, how to create the spam traps, because they want to report these big providers like Gmail, Outlook. So this is a sender that's sending unsolicited emails or unwanted emails just for you to know, and immediately your reputation goes down, and that's it. And all of your emails following will be going to spam. If the email is going to spam, nobody will see it, so nobody will engage. It can be a good promotion, it could be a newsletter, something educational. Nobody will see it probably if you don't check your spam.
Yeah, you can pose as the most reputable brand, but if your emails go to spam, it's kind of difficult.
I have I have a hobby. I always check my spam folder to see who landed there, and also very big companies actually landing in my spam. I don't know, unfortunately or not, I'm fortunate. I don't know why, but so I see, and they're doing some mistakes. Also, a lot of settings should be done correctly. I will not speak about that, all the technical stuff, but if we assume that everything is done correctly, it doesn't mean you will go to the inbox, because this is my most important thing that can kill your reputation, even then you spent a lot of time on building it, the reputation, etc.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you so much for your answer, Daniel. Neil, do you know any other mistakes that we should avoid at all costs?
I think one thing that Daniel might have been alluding to right at the end there was, proper setup. We have SPF, we have DKIM, we all have all these things in place. And obviously we know the biggest news now is, as of 2024, Google and also AOL Yahoo are going to be a lot stricter on authentication. So one of the things to do that you want to make sure you do is you properly configure these IPs for the sending domain, those types of things, to make sure that it's authenticated. Security is a big concern nowadays. So if you don't do that part, you're just going to be, you're warming up the IP for, your sending platform, not for your domain. You're not building your reputation around those types of things. So one of the biggest mistakes you have is trying to skirt the system to not authenticate or not take that. I mean, it's 5 minutes to do that. So a big mistake I would say is, one, make sure you properly set it up correctly. Make sure you're properly authenticating. Like I said, Yahoo, Google, which is a big chunk of everything coming out next year, they're going to start docking you for that one. I would say the other thing to watch out for is sending creep. I'll call it that, because I've worked with a lot of businesses as they do their marketing and stuff. They might start slow, but then they don't realize that they have multiple salespeople with multiple sequences. They let their system go a little crazy, and then they go from sending, oh, we're only sending X amount a day. Well, they don't realize that now their volume's 10 times that, because they let a salesperson create their own sequences, or they let certain things. So you have to be conscious of your volume, especially as it grows, because it's very easy to get, as sequences go to the second email or third email, and they have 10 people sending 3, it adds up very fast. And so that would be the other mistake, is just really track your volume when you're warming, especially on the warming. How much are you really sending each day? Once again, by provider breakdown helps you a lot. That's something that I would say just to be aware of, that you have to watch, especially on the warming side, is really track that volume, especially if you have a larger system with multiple people working in it. That's, like I said, I've seen a lot where you just get sending creep.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, not tracking the volume can be kind of deadly. Okay, so we covered the mistakes, but let's say we did everything correctly. We did the setup, it's working well. There's no spam traps. What do we do next? We need to monitor and adjust our campaigns. So can you, Daniel, can you tell me a bit about like how you monitor and how important it is to regularly monitor the IP warming part?
Sure. So first I would say monitoring is, I think, the basic thing you have to do, the numbers. What I would not monitor is the open rates, because right now it becomes more and more, a fake number. And why, I can explain. Apple released an article or something like that it's very, it's not something a few people know. So these robots can open the message by themselves and read it and decide if it's going to spam or not, in a simple words. So open rates are not the metric I would measure. I would measure the right metric that you are trying to achieve. And for example, it can be, I don't know, the reply rate, or it can be the kind of engagement you are trying to achieve. Because finally, with the emails, it's just a tool to get another result. Email is not the final result. It's never the final result. With emails, you want to achieve engagements, purchases. If you are in the e-commerce world, you want to achieve, book demos, traffic to the website, stuff like that. So this exact thing that I would measure. And this is what we do when we normally talk to customers and help them with their deliverability. What we do, actually, we're going from the end to the beginning. We're trying to ask, what is your final goal, what you're trying to achieve. If you want to achieve more leads, for example, we're seeing, and we're asking some benchmark if we have. So they used to get, with 1,000 emails they send, daily or monthly, they are getting 10 demos, for example. So if it goes lower, we're trying to understand why. Maybe it's deliverability, maybe it's the message, but there's no sense to measure open rates or stuff like that and just concentrate in this, because, as I said, emails are a tool for a final goal that is not in the email. So email is never the goal. So this is what we're trying to help. So to achieve the final goal, and this is what I would always measure: reply rate, meeting rate, engagement rate, sign-ups, purchases, stuff like that. And then I would try to understand. Maybe it's deliverability, but we can understand. We send for different groups. Maybe they will engage more or not. But open rates and stuff like that, I will not be frustrated from open rates, or people always talking about open rates. I have low or high open rates, it doesn't mean maybe let's say it's a correct number. You have a high open rate, and then what? If you didn't convert from this email, so then what? So it doesn't matter. You can send millions. You have 100% open. Nobody did what you are trying to achieve from your email. So why you care about the open rates is it. So this is what I'm always trying. This is how I think about the emails in general. So yeah, so I think it's a common mistake, and the monitoring people are doing about opens are always concentrated in opens, even though it's not a real and correct number. They're still very stubborn about this number. But the real number you need to measure is how many leads or how many purchases you get. So yeah, this is something I would mention. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm coming actually from like a social media background, that sort of stuff. So we have a lot of similarities, because a couple of years ago, everybody was going after the number of views, the impressions that we had on social media posts. But frankly, what we really need to focus on is how many people actually clicked the link that we wanted, went through the post that we intended, how many people, I don't know, registered to the webinar or something else. Impressions are great, if you want to boost your ego, but they're still not the most important. Just like with the open rates, it's great to have 100%, of course, but there has to be business in this.
Yeah, what would you do with these clicks if you didn't convert them? So as I said, this is as a social media manager, you always do some posts and designs on the social media. But why does it mean how many people was seeing your message if you didn't convert or get traffic, or I don't know, whatever you're trying to measure? So it's a tool for your final goal. It's always a tool for your final goal: increase purchases, customers, I don't know, whatever you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
What about you, Neil? Would you agree with the open rates? I want to say controversy, but it's not really a controversy.
Yeah, I know you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. I think I wholeheartedly agree that you cannot live and die by the rates. You cannot live and die by the opens and the clicks and those. I do think there's value in those, because while you're going to be off by a certain amount of percentage, there is some information to kind of glean from your opens versus your clicks and what's going on with that process. And I think the important part is the consistency. If you start tracking it and you start seeing a consistency that you're always getting a 30% open rate, and something changes, like if you're sending a weekly campaign, you always get 30%, all of a sudden you drop down to 10, or you jump up to 50, that's when it starts looking at the problem, when you start saying what changed, what caused an issue. So while like I said, I wouldn't put my faith in I have to have a 60% open rate. I think the end goal is what's important. Did you get the conversions? Did you get the meetings? Did you sell the products? Did you get the signups? Those are what matter. But when you look at potential issues, the drastic changes in those percentages that you can measure is what helps you. I've seen it to where I've seen a spike in open rates, and then I see a drop, because what that means, and this is a little tip I've seen, is if a security filter, like say a Proofpoint, Barracuda, Mimecast, if you start having a dip in reputation, they're going to start really checking your emails, which means those open pixels are going to get scanned more, which means you're going to get a false positive, like a false increase in open rates. But then after that, you're going to see a drop. And so if you do see, here's a little tip to do. If you do see a dramatic spike in open rates, you're probably about to get hit hard with some spam placement right after that. So you want to watch your behaviors. Those are those triggers you want to look for. But that's why it's important to know your baselines. You need to know what you're consistently getting, especially if your volumes are very consistent, your content's very consistent, your senders are very consistent. If you see a huge difference, that's when you start looking at those potential issues. Once you start seeing potential issues, you look at, third-party tools that you can use. Inbox placement tests, I think, are very valuable. They're not 100, once again, just like open rates and click rates, they're not 100%, but it gives you an idea of how the different providers are handling your emails, especially those with you don't have history with. So, that's a tool that I recommend looking at, because, did your salespeople create new content that all of a sudden is now getting flagged? We've had people who have the same content for years, and the web host provider got blacklisted. All of a sudden, everything dropped. without having an inbox placement test to track those things or to look at those things, sometimes you miss it. And so to me, baseline your stats, make sure that you know what you're expecting to see. And then if you do see a problem, knowing the providers into an inbox placement test to know where the issues lie is going to help you, I think, in the long run. Those are the two big things I would say, like why monitoring is important. And then, what you can do is spot to fix it, just, test it. If you have to, create some mailboxes at some of your big providers. Have your own Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, just to see how it looks too. Especially if you're B2C, have a mailbox at the ones that you can use for basic testing. It's not as good as an inbox placement test, but you at least know what it's like to be your customer.
Yeah, frankly, a lot of times I have both accounts on a Microsoft and on Gmail. That's how I was spotting any kind of potential issues that could arise. So it's always good to be the tester. Thank you for those answers. I wanted to touch the subject of warm up for different senders. I'm expecting that it's not a one size fits all. You probably have to tailor different warming strategies to specific clients. Daniel, can you tell me something about this one?
Yeah, sure. Everything depends on the amount you want to send. We see different companies that some of them wants to send, 1,000 emails a month, and some of them even want to send a few millions a month. It's a totally different approach, totally different practices how to do that. So yeah, and it also depends on if these of their prospects are wants to receive their emails, or we have a huge risk that they will mark it as a spam. And this is something that is very important to understand before implementing the strategy. So if the people actually wants to receive the email from you, or you have a risk they will report you as a spammer, mark you as a spammer, etc. And the amount of emails you want to send. The segment also is important, because there are some segments that a little bit harder to get to the inbox. Some of the time it's related even to the message that you're about to send. The message itself can also trigger the spam filters, and even though that everything is working properly, the reputation is amazing, everything is warmed up, but the message can trigger the spam filters, which finally, nothing will help you. It's also is very important. Yeah, I would say, yeah, this is my answer.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I think some of our attendees will relate to this. Neil, what about email industries and our approach to different senders and warming up their IPs?
I think, Daniel, every client's going to be a little bit different, who's their demographic, with the mailboxes. Once again, it's, what platform should we be sending at, dedicated IPs versus shared IPs, because those are different tactics, and, mailbox outreach versus, an SMTP outreach. So they're all kind of different. That's where the different strategies come in, because also you look at the age of the domain that you put on those IPs. Is it a brand new domain? Is it an older domain? Are you using subdomains? So everything like those pieces helps dictate how that volume goes through, because each one starts at a different place. Using the car analogy, if you're in a race and you're halfway down the track, you'll get to the end faster because you're already partway there. You have an aged domain, you're using shared IPs, or you have a dedicated IP that has some history on it already. You just want to put a domain on it. So on our part, it's really about looking where you currently are. Do you use a tool like, Warmy, Daniel's tool, to basically start repairing some stuff from scratch? Have you tried this before and you've messed up, and now you're trying to get back to where you want to go? Those are different strategies, because everything's going to be a little bit different as far as that process. And so, yeah, we have to look for, this case, it's always about where they currently are. What's the current status? Because you can't always do the same thing. And then where do they want to go, and what's the business functionality of it? So that's always the biggest variations we look at, because it does go back to infrastructure, and it goes back to what are you getting us into when we first start.
Thank you so much. we will have to wrap up quite soon because I don't want to keep everyone too long. But I noticed that we have a couple questions in the Q&A section. If you don't mind, I would like to maybe tackle a couple of them. Emre is asking, how can we bypass fake reads from Gmail and similar providers? I don't know who could answer this one.
You really can't. I have seen some. I did see a trick on LinkedIn the other day. I don't remember who it was, but he put like a hidden link in his in like one small part that most people won't click, and that helps you kind of eliminate the filters or the false opens, those kind of things. But really, for the most part, it's really hard to track. Apple made it very hard with their Apple Mail client to do the, with the NPP. They really don't give you much information. I know some providers can kind of start, we kind of know what's an Apple NPP, but you really don't. You're kind of at the mercy of the ESPs. You're at the mercy of the idea of the private information and the security that comes from it. So really, it's about knowing your audience. Check it once again, checking your baselines, as Daniel pointed out, knowing your conversion metrics. Or are you really getting the conversions after the fact? Because there's 2 or 3 steps. There's an open, there's a click, there's then the next step after that. Do you have your analytics in place to really see who's clicking and opening those types of things through the website? And so really that's what it's going to boil down to. But for the most part, you're kind of at the mercy. You kind of have to know your audience and know how things are going. You have to, it's kind of a guesstimate more than an accurate reading. And you have to, like I said, if I know that most of my audience is Microsoft, I know that my opener is going to be weird because Outlook itself as a client doesn't open images. So I know they're going to have a lower open rate than you normally would because Microsoft by default doesn't. But if you have Gmail, you might get positive. Or if there's a lot of Apple Mail, you're going to get a lot more. So you have to find that balance of what it is. And it's just, once again, know your system, know your list, know your conversion metrics, and just be very cautious or very smart about what you have going on. Analytics are very powerful here.
Thank you so much.
I want to mention, I want to also to explain how it works. The open rates is very old technology, nothing sophisticated. The senders adding a pixel. A pixel is a picture, one on one, very, very small, transparent, nobody can see it, and it's the sender adding it to the message itself. And whenever we send it on the other side, if we download the images, if you are familiar, when we get an email and there is a breaking, as a broke, structure that we cannot see the image, is when we are not downloading the image. And this is how we cannot detect if someone opened the message. So this is how the technology works. So if we didn't download the image, we didn't report to the sender that we saw the message. So again, I think it's going back to my opinion. So we don't need to measure because maybe, as Neil said, we always need to take like the benchmark and always then measure and see what's going on. But in general, I would say also measuring the open rates can hurt deliverability, because if we add images or pixels or stuff like that, it's like an attachment, and it can also impact deliverability if you send, let's say, cold emails, etc. So it's not recommended in general.
I understand. Yeah. Do we have enough time for one more question, maybe? Or do you have something lined up? So Krashan writes, you mentioned that content that got flagged once is likely to be flagged again by a different email address. Will this be applicable if he uses the same content through an email from a different domain or IP?
So the deliverability consists of several things. It doesn't mean if you send a message from our experiments, if you send a specific message from different infrastructures, it doesn't mean that all of them will go to spam. So yeah, but one message from one infrastructure, let's say all of them are good, all of them are healthy, all of them are performing well. One message can trigger the spam, the same message, but on the other infrastructure it will not. So there's no rules. There's no rules that will say. Another thing I would say that you send to a lot of recipients, but every recipient has its own settings on his mailbox. And also also it impacts when he opened his mailbox and the settings he has inside. So a lot of things also can impact on the other side of the recipient. So yeah, so to summarize, one message from different infrastructure will act differently from our experiments.
I see. Thank you so much. I hope it answers Krashan's question. And I'm going to ask for one last Q&A question from René. What would you recommend to improve reputation and deliverability for B2B Outlook and Microsoft emails? Maybe Neil?
Yeah, well, for B2B Outlook and Microsoft emails, there's because I'm looking at the question too, because there's actually a couple parts to this one.
Yeah.
So Outlook and Microsoft are a very unique filter. They're actually a little bit more on the old school filter. So for them, IP warming is very critical for them. They're the ones that relate. They still weigh a lot on IP. They also weigh a lot on content. So one of the things to start looking at with those ones is to look at, do you, test your content? Do you have issues with what you're sending as far as content? If you're using Office 365 to send out, we obviously know that it's not an IP issue, but we know your content could cause a problem. We also know, have you properly warmed it successfully? Have you given to where you're sending enough positive engagement that's counteracting, what you're doing on your outreach side of it. So with them, it is more about content. It is more about IP address. And so that's going to be the biggest changes for those. Google is definitely they're more domain based. They're definitely really care about the domain. And then if you do see multiple content, or they do see some content that's getting, not opened or flagged as spam, you do start having some content problems. But that would be the big thing. And then your question about that top level domain, that weird, unique one that's not a .com, I think you had .events. Those actually, because of the way that the internet works, is we have seen some issues on the business side when you don't use a more standard, top level domain. .events, that's a newer one. If there's already another domain that's there, it can really impact it. So I would say you want to test with some other domains possibly. If you can use a .com, it's better, because we had a customer that changed domains to a .ai. And they literally were getting blocked by filters just because their domain was now a .ai. Certain filters just don't like that yet. So yeah, that could definitely cause a huge issue, especially with Microsoft and the older filters that they have. And that's usually what we work with. And then we'll warm and prep the content. Make sure that everything's lined up at Microsoft as far as it's positive, so that content doesn't get flagged as spammy. It gets flagged as engaged and wanted. So that's what you'd be looking at for the B2B Microsoft side.
Thank you. I think we're going to have to wrap up. I wanted to thank you, Daniel and Neil, so much for coming here and explaining a lot of things about IP warming. We won't be able to answer all questions. However, don't worry, this is recorded. So you will be receiving a recording afterwards to the email through which you registered. And we will be creating articles with some Q&A sessions as well. So no worries, all your questions will be answered. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Daniel and Neil, again. And
thank you so much.
Thank you. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.